Snow was falling hard that night. The old train station looked almost forgotten. Only one lamp burned, throwing a weak yellow glow across the wooden floor. On the bench sat a young girl named Madeline Brewer. Her fingers were stiff with cold as she held a small bag tightly against her chest. She had been waiting for hours. A man had promised to meet her here to give her a new beginning. But no one came. No voice called her name. The platform was silent except for the howl of the winter wind. Her father, Dassin, always said, "Be brave, Madeline, even when the world leaves you behind." She whispered those words now, though they did little to warm her. At the far end of the station, a group of rough-looking men sat watching. One stood up, boots thudding as he walked toward her. His smile was sharp, not kind. Madeline's heart raced. She had no way to escape. And just before he reached her, a deep, steady voice broke the silence. "This is just the beginning. The story will only get more powerful from here. Don't miss a moment, watch till the end, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories." The drunk man froze. "Leave her alone." The voice was steady, cutting through the storm. From the shadows stepped a tall figure. His long coat was dusted with snow, his hat pulled low. In his arms, he carried a little girl who clung to him with sleepy eyes. This man was Richard Petty. Few in town spoke to him, but everyone knew his name. Strong, quiet, dangerous if pushed, that was his reputation. The group at the far end stopped their laughter. The man who had approached Madeline muttered something under his breath, then backed away. His boots scraped across the wooden floor as he disappeared into the night. Richard turned toward the bench. Madeline sat stiff, clutching her bag as if it were her only shield. Her lips trembled, but no words came. Richard crouched low. His voice softened. No one should be left alone out here. Madeline's eyes flicked to the child in his arms. The girl blinked, then whispered something so faint Madeline almost didn't hear it. "Are you going to be my mama?" Madeline's breath caught. The child's tiny voice echoed louder in her mind than the storm outside. "Mama?" Richard shifted the little girl in his arms. "Hush now, Susanna," he said gently. "She's tired." His eyes lifted back to Madeline. "You look just as lost." Madeline opened her mouth, but no words came. She wasn't anyone's mother. She was barely holding herself together. Still, something in the child's innocent face tugged at her heart. Richard stood tall. "The station's no place for you tonight. There's shelter up the road. You can come if you want." His tone was even, neither pleading nor demanding. Madeline hesitated. Every warning her father, Dassin, had ever given her filled her head. Don't trust strangers. But the empty platform, the icy wind, and the fading strength in her legs left her with little choice. Slowly, she rose from the bench, clutching her bag tight. But just as she took a step toward Richard, the sound of galloping hooves thundered in the distance. Someone was coming fast. The storm howled as the sound of hooves grew louder. Madeline froze, her grip on the bag so tight her knuckles turned white. Richard shifted, placing himself slightly in front of her, his stance protective. A rider burst into the station yard. Snow sprayed from the horse's hooves, and the glow of a lantern cut through the night. The man swung down swiftly, his boots crunching against the frozen ground. "Madeline Brewer!" he barked, his voice sharp, urgent. "I told you not to wander off alone." It was Colt McRae, her father's most trusted hand. His dark coat flapped in the wind as he strode forward, face stern. Madeline's heart lurched. If Colt was here, then her father must know she had tried to leave. Richard's eyes narrowed. "You know her?" Colt glanced at him, then at the child in Richard's arms. His jaw tightened. "This is family business. Step aside." The air grew heavier. Madeline's pulse quickened as both men locked eyes, neither willing to move. And then Colt's hand dropped to the revolver at his hip. Madeline's breath caught as Colt's hand brushed the grip of his revolver. Snowflakes swirled between them, glowing faintly in the lantern light. Richard didn't move. He simply adjusted his hold on little Susanna, shielding her with his broad arm. "I said step aside," Colt growled. "This girl's father sent me. She belongs with her family." Richard's voice stayed calm but firm. "She doesn't look like property to me. She looks cold, hungry, and scared." Madeline's chest tightened. Colt's words stung. "Belongs?" As if she had no choice, no voice of her own. She had run from her father's plans for her, and now those chains threatened to snap tight again. "Colt, please," she whispered. "I'm not going back. For the first time, Colt's stern mask cracked. His jaw clenched, his eyes flashing with something between anger and pity. "You don't know what you're doing, Madeline." Richard's hand lowered slowly toward the axe at his belt. Colt's fingers curled tighter on the revolver. The storm howled louder, and in the next heartbeat, steel scraped free from leather. The sharp hiss of metal cut through the night. Colt had drawn first, his revolver glinting under the lantern's glow. The barrel pointed straight at Richard's chest. Madeline gasped. The storm seemed to pause, as if even the wind held its breath. Richard didn't flinch. Calmly, he set little Susanna down behind the bench. The girl's wide eyes shimmered, but she stayed silent, trusting him. Then Richard's hand moved to the axe at his belt, drawing it in one smooth motion. The axe's blade caught the lantern light cold and sharp. "Put it down," Colt ordered, his voice hard. "I won't warn you twice." Richard's eyes narrowed. "And I won't let you drag her back into a cage." Madeline's heart pounded. Her gaze darted between them, the revolver, the axe, the fury sparking between two men who looked ready to kill. Then, without warning, hoofbeats echoed again. Another rider was coming fast, the sound rolling closer like thunder. Both Colt and Richard froze, turning toward the darkness beyond the station yard. The storm parted just enough for the sound of pounding hooves to grow louder. Snow sprayed as another horse tore into the station yard. Its rider pulled hard on the reins, the animal sliding to a halt in a cloud of frost. Madeline's eyes widened. It wasn't another farmhand of her father's, it was a stranger. The rider dismounted swiftly, pulling back a hood soaked with snow. A woman's face appeared, sharp, confident, and unshaken by the storm. "Julia Harper," Richard muttered under his breath. Colt stiffened. "What in blazes are you doing here?" Julia's lips curved in a half smile. "Cleaning up a mess neither of you seem fit to handle." Her gaze flicked toward Madeline, then lingered on Richard, then Colt. "The girl doesn't belong to either of you. She belongs where the money says she belongs." Madeline's stomach turned cold. She had no idea who this woman truly was. But the way Colt's hand trembled told her Julia carried more power than her revolver ever could. Julia stepped closer, brushing snow from her cloak, and in her gloved hand gleamed a sealed letter, marked with her father's name. The seal cracked as Julia Harper held the letter high, her gloved fingers steady. Snow whipped around her, but her voice cut through like steel. "This," she said, "is from your father, Dassin Brewer." Madeline froze. Her father's name hung heavy in the air. Colt shifted uneasily, as if he already knew what was written inside. Richard tightened his grip on the axe, but said nothing. Julia's eyes locked on Madeline. "He has signed away your hand. A marriage contract. You're to be wed by the month's end to a man twice your age, a banker, with deep pockets and powerful friends." Madeline's breath shattered. Her knees weakened, the world spinning. She had feared her father's control, but to see it spelled out in ink, it was worse than she imagined. Richard's voice rumbled low. "She's not property. Not for sale." Julia smirked. "Say that to the man who owns her future now." Then she turned the letter, revealing a second name written boldly beneath the contract. And Madeline's blood ran cold when she read it. Madeline's eyes locked on the paper. The name below her father's signature burned into her mind. Colt McRae. Her stomach dropped. Her father hadn't sent Colt to protect her. He had sent him to claim her. Colt's face twisted, torn between duty and shame. "Madeline, I didn't want you to find out this way." His hand lowered from the revolver, but his eyes held a desperate plea. Richard stepped forward, fury sparking in his voice. "She's not a bargain to be traded. She decides her own life." Julia folded the letter neatly, slipping it back into her cloak.
"Decides?"
She echoed coldly. "You poor fool. In this world, money decides everything." Madeline's breath shook as the snow whirled harder around them. For the first time, she felt the weight of every choice pressing down. Her father's control, Colt's betrayal, Julia's power, Richard's protection. Her fingers loosened on the bag she carried. Inside it was more than clothes. Inside was the secret her father had never known she carried. The storm roared, lantern light flickered, and in that moment, Madeline realized her next step could change all of their lives forever. This was only one tale among many waiting to be told. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss the next twist.